What evil lurks in the dark? A question we have all asked ourselves many times. Together, we can start uncovering the truth and mystery behind the darker side of the otherworldly. And now your host of See You in the Dark, Michelle Roos.
Well, good evening to all of you, and thank you for joining me for another episode of See You in the Dark. We have kind of just gone back and forth with the paranormal, the spiritual side of things, metaphysical, and, realizing that it all kind of comes together. Everybody's had a story of how they've gotten into the paranormal. We've all had, whether we have abilities or something that's happened in our life that has kind of put us on this path. Sometimes a lot of it you hear about is horrific, but it might be the way us being kind of steered in a situation where we start getting more in the paranormal, especially when it comes to helping people in need. We talk a lot about with everybody doing, like myself, shows, events, and things. Sometimes that part is kind of forgotten, and there are still people that try to reach out because there are things going on in their homes, whether it's, self-manifested or if it's something that's really been there. But again, we're dealing with people with their emotions and different things. It is really nice to know that there's still other people out there that do the same thing. And of course, my guest tonight will actually chat a little bit about that and, how he got involved in the paranormal. When I read his bio, it kind of choked me up a little bit. We talk about people with loss that might get them there, or traumatic things, especially a lot of our veterans that had served overseas had started going into the paranormal to make sense of different things. My guest is no different, grieving two children, and I can't even imagine how to, how I would be to be able to go around, and deal with the paranormal on top of that. So instead of you guys still hearing me chitter chatter, let's bring in my guest, Mr. Lee Allen. How are you?
Good evening, Miss. Doing
I,
fantastic.
okay, I don't know. I don't know if we got a little bit of a lapse or not, but I do want to start saying hello to all those who are saying hello. And if you have questions, definitely put them in there. We'll try to get to those. Um, so you were born and raised in Ohio. What part of Ohio?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay. Now I also have seen, like we were talking, um, this is one thing, it's kind of hard for me to talk about because I couldn't imagine losing one child, but you had a loss of two children. And it looks like after the first loss that you had in 1998 is when you started that paranormal journey. Can you kind of explain a little bit what happened and how that became?
Yes, absolutely. August 1998, my son was born, and he had what they called hypoplastic left heart. Never heard of this thing before in my life, but they said the left side of his heart wasn't fully developed. And so they had to go in and they had to put a shunt in from left to right, and they put a ventilator on him. And of course, it was a 13-hour procedure. And after the procedure, the next morning, his shunt had blown. And there was the only thing that was keeping him alive was the ventilator. So we had decided that, he doesn't need to suffer through that. So we lost our son. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks. He was 2 weeks old. And that was August 14th, he was born. And August 26th, he had passed away. Hey, Mike. And a month after I started seeing this shadow. And this shadow wasn't your typical shadow. It wasn't shaped like the backside like a human. And when you would see it from the front, it looked 3 foot tall. And I'm like, what is this? You know, and, you know, my mom, you know, both my parents growing up from Kentucky, they're like, oh, we see ghosts. We hear ghost stories all the time growing up and things like that. And I'm like, well, I know it can't be my son because it's too tall. And so one night I'm sitting in my condo and I'm watching TV, and I like watching TV in the dark. And I could see this shadow come down the steps, and that's when I could see the side and I could see its back. And it looked, this is weird, 3 foot tall. It looked like a dinosaur in the back. And it stood right by my TV on the left side of my TV. And I could see the shadow. Well, I'm trying to reach to turn the lamp on, and I'm watching this thing because I don't know what's going on. And this thing walked in front of my TV. It blocked the TV, like it cast it like somebody walked in front of my TV. I turned the lamp on. I heard it run through the dining room on the ceramic tile. I heard it giggle, and then it disappears. Now, this has done this to me several times through September and October of 1998. So I was like, well, who do I reach out to for something like this? And so I've been thinking about it. Well, one Saturday morning, I was getting showered to go golf with some friends. And his nursery was decorated at that time. Baby Looney Tunes was big. So we had it decorated, and we closed the door. And we haven't been in there since. And I'm in my bedroom, and I could hear his mobile playing. It was playing the Baby Looney Tunes song, but it was playing it backwards.
Oh.
So I grabbed the door handle. I open it up a little bit. I look in, and I could see the baby bed, the mobile, just swinging. So I swing the door open, thinking, okay, it's got to be someone that I know just messing with me. I stand in the middle of the room. I stop the mobile with my hand. His walk-in closet was behind me. And you know that feeling you get when you walk into a room or we're investigating, you feel like somebody's in there with you?
Oh, yeah.
They're eyeing you down.
Oh, yeah.
And then your heart, you can hear your heartbeat through your ears.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that I thought of is I'm stepping back. And I hope I don't walk into someone. I'm walking out of this room. I'm closing the door. I think that moment when I closed the door, I wasn't fast enough, but in my mind, I was stepping over coordination, putting my clothes on, and I shot downstairs. I go meet my friends, and they're like, it's like you saw a ghost. And they started laughing, and I looked at them, and I'm like, we need to talk about that, because you guys know what I've been experiencing. And I shared what happened that day. So a friend of mine, he goes, well, why don't you reach out to like a grieving? So he gave me some, this Yahoo group. They used to have those little meetup groups for grieving. So I met this guy and at this group, and I started sharing that story. And he goes, oh, you need to come out on an investigation with us. And I'm like, what kind of investigation are you talking about? He says, oh, we hunt ghosts. And I'm like, do what? And, you know, at that time, the only thing on TV was Most Haunted.
Yes.
The British. And I thought at that time, because I didn't know anything, I said, I am not reaching out to those people because I think they've lost their mind. And so I go to these group things. I start to hang out with him. He, you know, introduces me to some of these people. It was a big network group here in Ohio, and it was called Majda. And I forget what it means. MAJDA. And they would meet up in different counties throughout the state and investigate locations. So I tagged along. And my first investigation was not Moundsville, Willing, West Virginia. Moundsville. And it was, I thought, oh my God, you know, so here's this guy that's not into this. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I had an issue going on. So my dad worked in the mill, the steel mill, and he gave me this big C battery flashlight. I think I bought a little HP camcorder with a tiny micro screen. And I had an analog recorder and an old RCA recorder, digital recorder. So I took all of that with me. And, we're hyped. We're driving there, and we get there, and they're telling us stories. And, they're like, well, you need to share your story with these people. And I did. And they're like, well, maybe you'll get something tonight. So that's where it all started for me right then. And then, after that, when my son had passed away, we had our daughter in December of 2000. And we prayed and prayed that we was not going to go through any more of this, right, with any health problems. Well, she was born, and they went to check her temperature through the rectum, and they said, oh, no. And the nurse gets the doctor, and they take her out of the room, and I go with them, and they said the rectum. So they did an x-ray. The rectum did not go through the skin. So I'm like, oh, no, not again. So I'm just looking up, and I'm leaning on this counter in this back room, and I'm praying. I'm like, Lord, really? What did I do to deserve this, in my life, And because at the time, all I did was I'm into golf, fishing, just what any typical young guy, race cars, that was it. And so like, what did I do to deserve this? Well, she was born with what they call imperforated anus. So they had to reconstruct everything, the female, the whole 9 yards down there. And she had to have a colostomy bag on and a vesicostomy where she could urine right below her belly button. And so she stayed in the hospital till January 4th, 2 days after my birthday. And she came home, and she went through 53 inpatient and outpatient surgeries for 5 years of her life. I'm like, that is way too many things for a little child to go through, because adults don't even go through that many surgeries.
No.
And so, we had our trials, and, she had a lot of really good days. But when she got sick, it was really hard. And so, they would go in, and they had to wait till she grew before they can reconstruct everything. So they waited till she was almost like a year and a half old. So in and out of the hospital all the time. She got urinary tract infections so bad that they were putting her on a medicine called Cipro that was for an adult at 55 years old.
Oh my gosh.
She would take a dose of that, and it would just within 4 hours, she would be back to normal. So the weekend when she started feeling bad, and she felt bad on a Friday, then Saturday she was just like a golden child. And I'm like, this is weird. So we took her to a fair in town, and she wanted to ride rides that I thought she would never want to ride. She wanted to do things that she was scared of before. And I always kept this in the back of my mind, like, what is going on? And so Sunday she woke up, and I thought she loved scrambled eggs. So I thought, I'm going to make her some scrambled eggs. She comes into the living room, and she's like, my stomach's hurting. So I'm like, oh no. So I get her some Sprite. She liked the little tiny cubed ice cubes. And so I filled up a glass, and she sat there. And at this time, she was 4.5 years old, almost going to 5. And she sat in my recliner all day, and she didn't eat, but she was keeping fluids down. I got in contact with her doctor, and they said, just keep an eye on her tonight and bring her in first thing in the morning at 7:30. We want to see her, because we thought she just had a urinary tract infection. So the next morning we take her, and I had to be at a funeral because my brother-in-law lost his mother. So it was just a terrible time. And I'm at this funeral that day, and I told her, I says, Daddy will be back. I'm going to go show some respect at Uncle Don's mom's funeral. Okay, Dad. And then when I walked out of her room, she said, hey, Daddy. And I turned. I was like, yes, sweetheart. She goes, I love you. And I said, I love you too. That was the last words I said to my daughter. And I never did get to see her again alive. So my phone at the time was blowing up when I didn't know it. So I leaned over to hug my sister goodbye at the funeral home, and I felt the vibration because I had it clipped on my side. Back in the day, we used to clip them on our sides. They looked so cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So I took it out of the case. We had that leather case. I took it out, and I was like, oh, man. And it was a BlackBerry at the time. So I'm like, oh, God.
Oh.
I had voicemails, missed calls from my mom, my wife, her mother, her dad, my people were just blowing it up. They were trying to get a hold of me and my sister. And so I called my wife, and she's screaming. She said that she lost Caitlin. She called 911. They lost her twice. They brought her back. They put her in the paramedic. They were taking her to Children's. They couldn't make it there, so they had to take her to a regular hospital. And I said, where are you? I'm going to meet you there. And I do not remember leaving that funeral home and driving 3 cities away. But I did, and I made it to the hospital. And when you're like around a funeral, it's always dark and rainy when someone passes away.
Yeah.
It was so weird though, because we expected because of my brother-in-law losing his mom. But when I pulled up into the hospital and I was walking up to the emergency room door, I'm in tears and I'm trying to get there as fast as I can. It got real sunny.
Oh.
And I stopped and I looked up and I'm like, wow. So I took off my dress coat and I go in, and the lady standing there talking to another lady. I said, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but my daughter's here. They brought her to a paramedic. Oh, she came around, grabbed me. She took me straight back. And I remember standing in front of the trauma 3 door. There was 2 doctors, one on each side. And I saw the one on the right pumping at her chest. And I'm like, what's going on? I looked at the nurse that walked me back there. Then I heard the one on the other side go, time of death. Michelle, I don't remember much more after that, because when that happened, I woke up several hours later in a bed in that same room where she was. They said my blood pressure went up to like a 220 to almost a 205. They ripped my suit off. Ever since that day, I've been on high blood pressure medicine. Still am today. Just turned 50 January 2nd. And that is how I lost my daughter. So the autopsy came back. It was sepsis in the bowels, because she was just in the hospital the week prior to remove 85% of her colon. And they said, oh, we're going to teach her how to, change the colostomy bag and all that stuff. So by the time she gets about 8 or 9, we can go back in and reconstruct it. I was like, it's just so weird how they can just do things to the human body.
Yeah.
And we didn't get that opportunity. Then my life just went upside down there. Little rewind a little bit. I started my paranormal team in 2002. I kept busy doing just to keep my mind off things. When my daughter passed away, I was investigating residential. I owned a DJ company I did for 24 years. I DJ'd weddings, mainly a lot of weddings. And I worked. And I remember going in 2006, my wife, she wanted to get a divorce. And because we were blaming each other, and there wasn't, water and oil didn't mix then. And I'm like, it's best that we just part ways. And but a wild hair got up her butt. She just walked away from everything. So I sold our house. I moved. And then I remember going in to do my taxes in 2007 for 06. And the lady looked at me and said, you made more money DJing than you did working your full-time job in the fire industry. I'm like, because I didn't want to stop thinking, because if I sat, the mind's a dark place. I did not want to go there. So I kept myself busy 7 days a week. And then, family goes, well, no wonder your blood pressure is so high. I'm like, well, I'm trying to get away from that. So I was trying to get away from that darkness. So then there for a second, I thought maybe it's the paranormal. And, I grew up Baptist, and I went to church Baptist. And I So I went to church, and my pastor Lamar, I said, I got to talk to you after service. So we went into the
Hey,
room.
Lee,
Yeah,
I'm going to interrupt just real quick.
yeah.
By chance, I'm not sure, are you hearing it too? Like somebody is thumping on your microphone?
Every now and then I do hear that.
Okay, because it's getting, every time you talk more and more about this, it's like somebody's on your microphone thumping on it really hard where it's blocking you out. And I
Really?
didn't know if you, yes. And I keep hearing it, and I'm not sure if you're hearing it because it sounds like somebody's just all over the mic.
Wow. No, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
hear
how,
it. I don't hear it like that. Every now and then I hear like a little thump.
this is like super loud. That's why I was like, are you hearing it? I'm not sure if anybody's listening. Are you
Please, yeah.
guys hearing it too? Just curious, but it sounds like you got the mic in your pocket and you're running all over the place and just
Good
hearing
Lord.
that. That's,
Yeah.
that's what it sounds like. That's why I'm
Wow.
like, I got to interrupt for a minute.
Yeah.
So, and I want to backtrack a little bit. I
Yeah.
know
Go
you
right
make
ahead.
yourself really busy and stuff like that. So when you started really tapping into the paranormal,
Uh-huh.
okay, so people are hearing it too. Okay. I thought I was going crazy for a minute because I'm like, it just really sounds like it's all over the place. Did you know, was it one of those, okay, again, you were trying to stay busy and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but when you were getting evidence and things,
Mhm.
did it ever seem like you was questioning yourself, are you getting some other paranormal, or was it kind of going in to see if you're able to get communication with the children you've lost?
Good question. When she had passed away, this 3-foot shadow that I told you that I started seeing
Uh-huh.
after my son had passed, um, even when she was alive and I started doing paranormal, the week of when I would go to an investigation, this shadow would visit me, and it still does till today. Um, I don't know who it is. A lot of people say it could be a spirit guide. I said, "What, a dinosaur?" Because I'm like, "What?" Uh, and it's strange, being in the paranormal now for so long, and my abilities opened up in 2010. So when I don't know what it is, but it still visits me. And then there at first, yes, when I started doing this, I wanted to help the client and also wanted to help myself by getting answers and praying that sometime when I got my recorder on, because I put them through the entire, if we're doing a residential, I was putting them everywhere, a recorder. So I was like, well, hopefully my kids will come through. They never did. Never did. But like I would tell our clients, and we all in the paranormal are the same way. It's like us being sitting on a fence.
Yeah.
And one side's the dead and one side's the living. So as a paranormal investigator, we're helping both sides.
Yes.
We're helping the client that called us in, but they got to realize we got to help the dead because you want us to communicate with the dead. So we got to help them as well.
And that's really good to hear you say that because that's one thing I preach a lot about. So with my abilities and stuff, I kept always trying to be that person to give those love notes is what I call them.
Yeah, exactly.
But it wasn't for me. That's not what I was getting. I was getting more of the terrifying kind of things, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, why am I getting this? Well, to find out, I was really supposed to talk for spirit. So when we're doing homes and things like that, when I started putting myself on the level of helping the spirit, it was actually helping that family because it was the spirit that was needing to actually talk and give their story. And I noticed when I'm like, oh, okay, so I don't fit in that paranormal box. If I do it this way, one, it helps me, but two, it's helping the side I'm supposed to help
Sure.
and never realized it. It wasn't really about the living. It
Nope.
was about the spirit side and stuff. But another question I wanted to ask you just
Sure.
before we take a short break. I keep getting, and I know this sounds weird, but I've never gotten this on a show before, but I keep getting a curse, something
Okay.
about a curse. And I don't know about it, but it's actually like a very old curse.
Okay.
And I'm not sure about that. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that or
No.
anything like that, but yes, I don't know what it is. So it just keeps coming over, and I'm like, "Oh, let me ask him about that."
Sure, sure.
So, but before we
Interesting.
sorry,
No, absolutely.
before we get into any more of the paranormal, because we got some more to talk about, we're gonna jump into a small break, and we'll be right back.
Tickets are now on sale for Rebels of Disclosure 2025, May 12th through the 15th in Grafton, Illinois at the beautiful Pierre Marquette Lodge and Conference Center. This will be a 4-day event with 12 speakers covering topics such as ET contact, experiencer testimonies, lost history, secret space programs, time travel, Illuminati, parallel realities, and so much more. Visit journeytotruth.online for more details.
And welcome back to everyone. I want to go ahead and bring my guest Lee back on, kind of getting into some of this conversation. Now, you have your own team, and you've had the team up since 2002, correct?
Yes.
And it also says that you're part of the TAPS family. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sorry, you was breaking up on me.
The TAPS family. How did
Yes.
you get involved in that?
Well, knowing Jason prior to that, and he wanted me to get involved in that a little bit earlier, and there's some things that I wasn't ready to get involved into yet because we were doing a lot of residential, helping a lot of people, and then all of a sudden I decided, it was time to do it. So I reached out and. He goes, yeah, I want you to fill out this form. And he goes, tell me a little bit about how you do your investigations. And I was like, well, my background, what I do full time is fire. So we're investigating. So I want to go in before we open up the equipment and see if we can debunk, if it's something that we can reenact. And then if it's something beyond that, then it's time to start pulling out some equipment to check EMF and, run recorders and things like that. So what I like to tell people is you've got a 0 to 100% scale. And about 95% of that scale, we can figure it out. But that 5%, what we call the unknown, that's where it has a scratch in our head. So then he goes, man, I like how you do this, and here's some of our ways. So filled a form out with them, and been going strong in Ohio and Kentucky with them for a very long time now. And one of my cases was on when he had Ghost Nation. And they came to a little village here that I do a lot of 101s at a local museum in Waynesville, Ohio. They came to check out an old Catholic church that's been converted into a woman's clothing, country western clothing. And so they came and we did an investigation there because I sent in some information that they had to take a look, because the original grotto is still in the back behind the old church. And we're back there with the thermal and with the owner, me and my wife, Patty. And I snapped a thermal shot. It looked like somebody had bent down in front of the grotto as like they were praying. And so it was like a couple weeks later, Jason got with me, the network got with me. They wanted to hear more about this location, about the town. Then they showed up, and it was a wonderful, wonderful investigation. Plus, to put it out there for them. And the little store now is what they call Buckeye Charm. And so we've been going strong with the Taps family for a very long time now. And even though their show's not on, I still get cases that, people still reach out to Jason and Steve and Tango and they'll send them right to me. Some of the stuff he sends me, he knows I'm going to laugh, because I had one where a guy thought his left big toe was haunted. No joke.
Oh, I've gotten some of those. Yes, I have.
So, you want to respect everyone.
Absolutely.
And give them the time and the benefit of the doubt. And I'm listening to this, and so I was like, and I said, so some of the questions that we got to ask, and I told the guy is, well, they can't investigate your toe because we're thinking it's your house. And he goes, no, I already know who it is. It's my mother.
Oh.
I was like, well, why do you want this out there in the public eye? He says, I just want to share with everyone my story and to get my 15 minutes of fame. And I'm like,
my.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to have a producer call you. So I hung up and I FaceTimed Jason Halls again. And I'm like, this is not happening. And he started dying laughing. And I was like, you knew the story? He goes, absolutely. I was like, you can't. He said, that was a test. I was like, that did not fly.
Well, and the thing is, if you really think about it, though, well, but this guy told you the 15 minutes fame, but there are people out there that things like that happen, or they even self-manifest their own stuff. Yeah. And, and when it's so crazy, because when you're talking energy-based type of things, with the theories and all that, when you start having all that negativity, it does start growing into its own creature. Mm-hmm. And then, you're looking at this creature, and you're feeling haunted. And then, of course, I get the calls with, it's a demon.
Yeah.
And because when you're self-manifesting that negativity yourself and creating your own creature, you automatically start getting that oppression in things. So it kind of like falls in place of what some people would call the 3 stages of possession, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that is because somebody's very lonely or they've lost somebody, and so you still have to have that compassion to it. But then sometimes you're kind of like, okay, nobody's going to be able to help you because we already know you're not going to help yourself.
Exactly.
And it kind of, it's a juggling act, especially when you're helping families. A lot of people don't realize if you're in the paranormal for the right reasons and you are doing that part of it, you end up having to, have your ears open and, you're like the counselor, the paranormal investigator, you're their priest or preacher or whatever to try to help them navigate, because some of the stuff I've heard, I haven't had the big toe, but I do have one where I have an older gentleman, and I know it's probably because he's lonely. He'd lost his wife, his kids are grown and out, and they stuck him in this apartment. But he's always saying there's this monster in his room that keeps massaging his legs and feet. And he knows that the bottom part of his bed is the only part that's haunted. And he'll hear the knocks first. We went and checked him. You could tell he's probably got gout or something and getting those creepy crawly feelings.
Oh, absolutely.
But no matter what, but when you get people like that too, they're all over the internet. They watch all these YouTubes. They watch everything, just like WebMD. The time you're done reading, you're dead.
Exactly.
And so it is a crazy juggling act of, listening and being compassionate, but also knowing when to kind of go, okay, we got to stop here. This is A, B, and C. And I got to tell you, there's some people that get really mad because they want it to be paranormal. And so it becomes harder and harder to do that piece because with it all over the place now, everything's paranormal and everything is demonic. And there's no in-betweens.
No, it's either it goes straight to the dark side.
Oh yeah, everything, and they're like, I know there's a demon in the house, and I'm going, oh, okay, and why would you think it? Well, because I watched this documentary of these people being possessed, and I've got the same thing, and I'm always walking in going, just hopefully one day the head does not spin and I get no pea soup.
Oh, yeah,
I am golden, right? Because I'm waiting for that special effects at one point, right?
Exactly. And and a lot of people see it. Paranormal has become an entertainment for people that watch those shows.
Yeah.
And they call you into their location, either it's a home or a business. And then when the team shows up, because they're 100%, they tell you great things because they've watched the shows.
Oh yeah.
And they come up with some of the best stories. And then when you get there, you're like, who are all these people outside? And then they're wanting to, then they come up and say, hey, we invited some of our friends. We're going to order pizza and some beers. Well, then we're not investigating. We're not your puppets, and we're not your entertainment for this Friday or Saturday night. We all have full-time jobs. We all have lives. And we have families. And we can't just walk away from that just to entertain you. Yeah. And we get that a lot.
Yes.
Well, we saw you on TV, and we thought if we got you in here, you're going to pass your story on to TAPS. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. I mean, you're not showing a good example.
No, because I've always get asked, are we going to be on YouTube?
See?
Are we going to be on TikTok? And I'm like, I just drove 2 hours for what? But we do we do a very extensive intake on the phone. But again, just like when somebody comes for a job interview, some people do the best job interviews. And then when you get them, because you're like, oh my God, they're amazing. And you're like, what? Yeah. That same type of feeling, and trying to get people to understand, I always believe, like they say, the veil's getting, thinner. Well, I don't think there's actually a veil. I think we're just opening up more and we're tapping over to the side, that line in the sand type of thing.
Yes.
And so, everybody in October, that's when I get most of the calls because I think the spirits hang out and just kind of vacation through the year. And in October, they haunt everybody. Right?
Everybody's getting a Michael Myers.
So it's like, oh, I got a haunting. How long has this been going on? Oh, since the 1st of October. And I'm like, okay.
Well, we started decorating for Halloween.
Yeah. I don't know what I opened. I think I opened a portal.
Exactly.
So, and the crazy thing is, when you have people like yourself and all that, to constantly hear, those stories. Yeah, we can laugh at them.
True.
But then you have to think too, what had pushed them to that point? Because you don't want to sit there, because when you're listening on, I had this one guy that kept saying that he keeps feeling a breeze and everything like that. And it was really, especially when it was windy outside, he thinks it stirred up the spirits. So he got more of a breeze. Well, to find out there was a gap in a window, even with it closed,
Oh
trying to
man.
explain, hey, maybe this could be it. Oh, no, it is not. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, okay. So, yeah, I mean, and that's the only bad thing about the way the paranormal has become in certain points,
Yeah.
because there are still real people out there that need help, especially when
Oh,
there's children
absolutely.
involved,
Absolutely.
and
And
so
when the children are involved, that takes, first place. We got to go take care of that. And that's what I love about my wife. I met my wife. She was actually on the other side. She had some experiences growing up with paranormal, but she had paranormal activity at her house. And she reached out to a team, and that team was one of my friends. And he investigated, because she had 2 kids. And he goes, I want to get you a second opinion. So he called us up. And I was single, after that was back in 2009, 10, somewhere right around there. And that's how I met my wife, Patty. I didn't come out the first investigation. I had a team come out because I was doing something real cool that I couldn't pass up. And
yeah.
I was actually filming for a Super Bowl commercial with Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. That didn't make air, but it's still, I was in Columbus, Ohio with them, and they're both diabetic, and they have a recipe book. And here I am, this little white boy sitting at this table with this big plate of chicken with their sauce, and I've got it all over my face, and they're over me. And I'm like, please, just whatever you do, don't accidentally hit me, because your hands is like huge. So then when I came back to do the reveal, that's when I met Patty. And so, it just clicked. And then I told her, I says, I would really love for you to tag along, because you was asking a lot of great questions when we were investigating your house. So she loved it. So now when we go out to residentials, she gets the wife, or, the lady of the house. She gets them to open up, and they'll share, oh, well, we're, medications. Well, do you know the side effects? And Patty will go through it with them. And a lot of that, they'll be like, well, then that's probably why we're having paranormal activity.
Yeah. A lot of times it does help having somebody. We have someone on the team too that does that, and is very good to get that kind of information, because they just know how to talk just right,
Yeah.
And so it's so important, because and how do you feel on this? And a lot of people go back and forth. One
Sure.
thing that really gets under my skin is, no matter where you go in a location, I'm talking about locations now.
Uh-huh.
And everything, all the spirits are unicorns and fairies and all the pretty flowers. And you walk in and dang well there's some dark stuff going on.
I
How
totally agree. Totally agree.
does that not get under your skin
It
sometimes? Because
does.
they're like,
Yeah.
don't tell them. There's nothing bad here. There's nothing bad.
Why do
And,
you want to keep it from them?
yeah, because one, you probably get more people coming because everybody wants
Exactly.
that. But,
There is the Waynesville, the museum that we help out, bless the lady's heart. She likes to do ghost things because they do ghost hunts, walks through town and share stories in the historic town about different locations. But when we're investigating, because when we do the 101, when it's time for lights out and they get to investigate with us, these people, they've seen our equipment on TV and now they get to do it. She always tells them, we have happy ghosts here. And I've been working with them since 2005 and 6. And I'm behind them behind her, and I'm like, just don't listen to Linda, because everything's not happy. Everything is not peaches and cream. There is things out there that's going to mimic a child. It may not be a child.
Thank you. Well, and that's the same. I was at a location. It especially gets me when you're in those hospitals. A lot of them, they were first poor farms, then they turned into, asylums, and then, of course, an old folks' home. Now, at any point at that time those people were living, they were not having a party. I mean, especially when you go to the hospitals with TB. they knew when they walked in, they would never come back out.
Absolutely.
You know, they would never see family. And they're like, yes, we have the children and stuff. They like playing the balls. They're so happy. And I'm like, the negativity that was in this building when these people were just devastated with what was going on. And they were, you know, and the doctors were trying to figure out what to do. And of course, using them as pincushions.
Exactly.
You know, what do they do? Oh, I'm going to go downstairs, get me some chocolate pudding because this is a party. I'm like, I said, you guys are missing the spirit's emotional distress when they were alive. And it just blows my mind. And I'm like, so now you're going to have me come through this hospital because everything is hunky-dory? No, we're doing such injustice for the spirits. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah, because you got to think those hospitals or those sanatoriums or asylums, those people were dropped off at a young age because they were sick and they had to be put in there to an old age and they died there. They knew they wasn't getting out. And when we go to investigate it, let's go see if he wants to kick the ball. I don't think he wants to kick the ball. I think he's sick. He was here for a reason. I know I don't hang around and I'm not sick, but I don't go to the hospital and hang out and want to shoot ball, play basketball and stuff like that. I'm not, you know.
We should try that just to see if it works, right? Hey, I think I got influenza. You want to play ball?
Yeah. Sorry, I have tuberculosis here, but let's go ahead and let me push that ball down the hallway one more time for you.
Yeah. And I've been trying to change that narrative so much. It's like, you know, we need to start being on the level of the spirits. You know, you think about it like some children. Think about children who, you know, had learning disabilities or had anger issues. Well, their parents, it was nothing to drop a 5-6-year-old at one of those hospitals to see if a doctor can help them.
Absolutely.
Now you think of your parent just dumping you, never coming back, and then while they're experimenting on you, you die. I don't think that little boy is going to want to play with a whole bunch of strangers coming through. Like, you know, who are you people?
And now with the technology we have with this equipment that it may look pretty, but they don't know what that is. You know,
they're scared.
They've already been tortured enough with these doctors. You know, having lobotomies to let's take this child outside in the wood, out here in the field, and in the pouring snow so they can breathe. That's what we're thinking will help them cure them. Those children are in distress. They're not wanting to have a good time with you.
Well, and that's the thing, because you know, people don't understand with children's spirits too. They actually, not all of them are just in distress that way, but they also built, you know, because kids have a hard time with their emotions. We teach them how to deal with their emotions.
We do. Yeah.
So when you have a kid, now a lot of people will know if you have children when they threw a tantrum. I sometimes, you know, like throw myself on the floor in the middle of the mall to have a tantrum. That is anger that they don't know how to release themselves.
Absolutely.
Now you think about that anger in a child back then, that keeps building up. Well, now their spirit is going to have both that anguish and that anger built up, which then will make those little creepy shadow kids running around that don't want to play ball, but will want to, you know, havoc on your life.
Absolutely. They want to mess with you.
Yeah. And it's like, I think, you know, oh, it's Johnny. He's so cute. Oh, no, he's not.
No, he's not
if
cute.
You see what I see with Johnny, you might want to go the other way.
He's not what you're describing by any means.
I'm not sure why you're saying he's got blonde hair and stuff, because, you know, he reminds me of that movie, you know, all those blonde hair kids with black eyes.
Yeah.
No.
There's no blue eye in that black eye.
Well, before you leave, I know you have your own show too. Real quick, I want to make sure you can let everybody know if they want to reach out to you, see your show, or, you know, that you have your podcast and stuff. Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook on my personal page, Lee Allen. You can find us at ParaVizionz Paranormal Society on Facebook. You can find us on our YouTube channel, ParaVizionz Paranormal Society. Just started doing TikTok. I just like throwing out a little things. And then also our podcast, All Things Creepy with Ghostly Travels. And we're on Tuesday nights right after Michelle. So that's where you can find us. We're always here to talk to help. Anything we can do to help you, we're all about it.
Awesome. Well, I want to personally thank you for coming on my show. I have just truly enjoyed having you on here.
Well, thank you so much,
Um,
and it's been an honor.
I would definitely love to have you back on and maybe
Yeah,
talk a little bit about the more darker side of the paranormal, because at
got a
least
bunch of
you
stories.
understand it. Yeah. Um, but I'm going to let you go because I know you need to jump off to get ready for your show. So, guys, if you want, you can follow Lee over to his show, show him some love. And thank you so much again, and have the most beautiful night.
You do the same. Thank you so much, and stay warm.
Oh, you too. You too.
Thanks. Take care now.
Bye. Well, as we were talking, different ways of how people get into the paranormal, grief being one thing, and trying to find those answers. Lee was so pleasant with be able to take what he was feeling and the losses he had to kind of change it around to help those that also are in need. And of course, I've got some people on here that used to do privates and was getting crazy ones just like us. I understand, that a lot of us won't do a lot of those anymore because of that. But always keep in mind too, you might have 5 to 7 of those real crazy ones because they think they're gonna put them on social media, but then you've got that one where there's a family that is really living in torment because they don't know what's going on. They could have went on a ghost hunt and was very open, brought something back, different things like that. When we talk about it, if we go into this and we think about it on the spirit side, sometimes that is what can help us help the living. We want to hear from the spirit side. We get excited when we hear something, but sometimes we just have to kind of sit back and listen a little more because there's more than just that one word that you might have caught on EVP, or that cuss word or that get out, because sometimes those are actually leading to something else. And if we start putting ourselves in that situation, we might be able to help even more people, both living and not living. I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. I can't wait to have Lee back, to be able to have the outlook that he does, but also, know we have to kind of fumble through and find out what is there, what isn't. The paranormal's out there, it always has been. It's just now become, everybody thinks it become a meal ticket. But I think we need to all start looking back at going back to what it was back in the day, when we were first seeing all those spirits, and why are they coming? And why are there more? Or have they always been there and none of us has just paid attention? So I do want to thank each and every one of you that was on tonight. And till next time, I will see you in the dark.